Welcome to Picks with the Professor, the podcast for a real statistics professor.
And the Barney Rubble to his Fred Flintstone, Jake.
I like it. Gives you sports betting tips. I'm Professor Sides. You can follow me and find all my picks on Twitter at Professor Sides. You can follow my friend Jake on Twitter at myfriend_Jake. Today is Wednesday, March 9th, 2022, and this episode covers today's best college basketball bets. In case you're new here, I built a mathematical model that predicts what the spread and total should be for every Division I college basketball game. That information, along with a graded A, B, or C pick for each of today's games not covered in this episode, is available in the Google Sheet link in the show's description. A picks are the ones I love, B picks are the ones I like, and C picks are the leans. However, please remember that good and bad variance will occur. So as much as I like to say the model will be profitable each and every day, that is an impossible reality for any gambler. Jake, I don't know if this has happened all season, but the model went exactly 500 on Monday and exactly 500 on Tuesday. And I feel like that's also an impossible reality, right? Like one day is going to go up or down on that, right?
Yeah, it's tough to do. It's tough to be right there each time.
Yeah. And we've been that way on the podcast here too. For the week, I'm 5-5. You're 5-6. So we're just hanging around 500 this week. Hopefully, we'll get it going here as the week winds down. Jake, what's one thing we should know before we get started?
Today is when the magic really starts. The magic of Champ Week. You know, like you got teams that are going to be starting runs. You got small conferences that ending punching their tickets. Like now's the time to start looking to see if you can find that Oregon State team or UConn team that wins, the entire conference tournament and then goes on and makes a giant run in March that's completely unexpected. Picked out a few teams I think might be capable of it, but are really on the long shot kind of end. But like you got Nebraska and the Big Ten who's really putting it together here at the end of the year, winning 3 straight road games, you get 2 of them against ranked teams. And Arizona State, who's been good, hot and cold all year. They've had some really good games and then had some really embarrassing losses. So those are 2 teams to kind of look out for. And then Seton Hall, who's already in the tournament, so it's not as special if they make the run. But if they get healthy, it could be a really dangerous team.
Yep. A reminder about a schedule for the week. We'll do an episode all 7 days this week, including our first Sunday episode where we'll break down all of the conference championship games on Sunday afternoon. And we're still looking to get a few more YouTube subscribers. So if you haven't done that yet, please click that subscribe button and we will get you some bonus content whenever we can cross that 1,000 subscriber threshold. Jake, today we're going to start off with a game a little bit earlier in the day. There's games all throughout the day. So whether you're watching, earlier or later, there's something for you all over here. 1:30 p.m. Central Time, Boston College versus Wake Forest. Wake is a 9.5-point favorite, total of 142. Jake, I'm taking the under here. The model thinks it should be 138. Wake's been an over team this year, but I can't math anywhere near this number. It makes no sense to me how you can get that high of a number here, especially knowing we had that neutral site conference tournament effect as well. The model has done well backing Wake. This number is a little higher than I want, though, personally. I think the interesting thing here about this number, about this 9.5, is when teams give up at the end of the game versus on the fouling. And it's so different per team, right? Some teams will be down 10 with 40 seconds left, and they're still fouling, right? And so that's the situation you want yourself in. Say what?
Like Gonzaga game last night, the St. Mary's fouled and got the push for. Thank you.
Right, exactly. You have that, so that's a situation you want yourself in if you're backing Wake, right? But some teams, it seems like, kind of give up a little bit. One of the ACC games yesterday, there was talk about that, right, where they were fouling and all of a sudden they were down 6 and just let the clock run out. So that's kind of the interesting thing here is how teams handle this whole my season's ending, the tournament's ending, what late game fouling will happen. Because I feel like that could come into play here with this number. Wake, obviously the better team and should win. The question is, though, can they win by double digits?
Yeah, I think they do. This Boston College team is not very good. They got a bye game with Pittsburgh yesterday, but that I know. I think there's might be some high school teams out there that could give Pittsburgh a run for their money. But Wake is really good. They've got the ACC Coach of the Year in Steve Forbes, who's just an incredible coach. Everywhere he's gone, he's turned this Wake program around in a year and a half. And then Alondas Williams is just an incredible player. I think he won ACC Player of the Year. If not, he was right up there deserving of it. He's just leads the team in every relevant statistic. But don't sleep on how balanced this team is. I know Alondas Williams gets all the love, and he's averaging 19 points and all deserving of it. But you got LaRivia and Williamson that are also averaging double digits along with him and are doing just as good a job on defense. So I think this Wake Forest team is really a team to watch out for. They can make a run. can really get it going, especially when you have a guy that's as good as Alondas Williams.
Yep, and then right after that one finishes up, we've got 3:30 Central, Butler versus Xavier in the Big East tournament. The model thinks this should be Xavier minus 7.3, so it's a B pick for me on Xavier minus 5.5. Jake, I hate this pick, like with every fiber in my being. The model is 3-10 backing Xavier. Now it is 10-5 fading Butler, so this is definitely more of a pick against Butler than on Xavier. I think I need to go back and check the records, but I think that Xavier has lost 100 games in a row at this point, give or take. I think that's about right. I have to check my math here, but they just have not looked good lately. And so my fear with this game is it's a tight game. Butler has nothing to lose, throws everything at them, and somebody wins by 3 at the end. The math says that Xavier should be able to handle them, though. I'm just like I said, it's one of those things. I'm going to trust them all. I'm going to trust the math here. I'm laying the 5.5 with Xavier, but my goodness, the way they've played lately just worries me. Jake, what's your take?
Yeah, I'm the same way. I'm very, very nervous about this Xavier team. They've been in a free fall with how they've been playing, and it's really hard to point out like, oh, this is what's wrong. It's everything is going wrong. They're turning the ball over. They're not making shots. They're playing poor defense. They're making bad decisions. I don't know how you get that turned around, but I mean, playing a team like Butler has helped because Butler is very bad.
That's how you do it, right? That's the cure for this disease is playing Butler, right?
Yeah, and I mean, Butler's dealing with some injuries and stuff, so you don't know who's exactly at 100% and who's not, kind of coming back and forth. So it's been a bit of a rough year for them. I believe Fremantle and Nunji will be enough to get this done if they can get enough out of their guard play. Like watching the guards for Xavier is really key to the game here. If they're not turning the ball over and they're not deciding they don't want to feed their big guys anymore, Xavier can get this done and win this by double digits, but it's really scary, this line, because, like you said, Butler's got nothing to lose. They're not in the tournament. Xavier's got everything to lose. They're plummeting, maybe even touch the bubble if they drop this one. So this is a very scary game, and I believe Xavier's got enough to get it done.
Yep, it's one of those games where if you ever feel overly confident about any play, right, you're probably missing something, right? So it's just this one's the easy game to figure out what to not be confident about. It's the way that Xavier's play. But I think, like you said, it's an interesting point because there's nothing that really makes sense as to why they've fallen apart, and there's some narratives I've seen on Twitter about this is what Xavier does every year in February, March, and blah, blah, blah. But I mean, it's hard to really buy into that. Like, nothing's really changed. It's just why all of a sudden can't they get it together? And like we said, hopefully the cure for that is playing a Butler team that is, potentially shorthanded, not very good, and Xavier can hopefully go out there, win by double digits, and get a little bit of their mojo back.
Yeah.
Also in the Big East tournament there, DePaul at St. John's. It's a 6 p.m. Central tip. I'm putting at because St. John's does play 5 or 6 home games a year, so I'm giving them a normal home court advantage there. The comfortability of playing in that gym, being in the locker rooms, all that other fun stuff should help give them a boost there. I'm taking under in this game. I think the number is just too large. I think all we need is one 4-minute stretch of slow play. We're sitting pretty here. The model also kind of like St. John's as well. So I know you're on St. John's. This is one where if you're looking at, I know people always ask about parlays or whatever, right? Parlay across games, a little harder to justify. Doing so, why not just keep those bets independent, keep your confidence, be able to manage your bankroll, whatever. But if you're parlaying within the same game here, this is a situation where I think St. John's and the under makes a lot of sense there. Jake, tell us why you think St. John's can get it done here.
The St. John's team is one of my favorite teams to watch just because of how they play. And DePaul's up there too when Freeman Liberty's playing, and so this is probably my favorite game to watch of the night. But I really, really like the St. John's team right now. They're playing well. They're getting it together. Posh Alexander is stepping up. And they've got arguably the best player in the Big East with Julian Champagny. So it's going to be a really fun game to watch. Should be high, fast-paced, up and down. But maybe not the most efficient shooting because of how these teams are so dependent on one guy, really. The key to the game will be Posh Alexander, and I've said this last time we talked about St. John's. As long as he is not making terrible decisions and is serviceable scoring wise, St. John's should get this done. They've got enough around Champaign to help him out if Posh Alexander's on, and the way he distributes the ball is just incredible. DePaul's just not got enough defense in them to get in their way, I don't think, and not got enough offense behind Freeman Liberty. But it should be fun to watch the duel between Freeman Liberty and Champaign. It should just be a blast. Plus, being at home helps, like being able to sleep in your own bed kind of deal. It really, really helps the St. John's team out. So I think they get it done.
Yep, and then the screen had a typo there earlier on. The number is 153.5, so that's the number I'm going under. The model thinks it should be more like 151.5 for that one. And then the only Big 12 game of the night, thanks to Oklahoma State being ineligible for the conference tournament. There's only one play-in game. I'm taking under in this one as well. Also a 6 p.m. Central start, West Virginia versus Kansas State. I'm going under 138.5. The model thinks it should be 134.5. That's quite a discrepancy there. The model has loved these West Virginia unders, and they have not been great to us, but with tournament season, things get weirder. Both teams really have to win this game. West Virginia has to win the tournament to get in. Kansas State, I think, has to win this game. Maybe another one. Kind of depends on how things shake out with the bubble. Kansas State's, I guess, got a little bit of a better case than West Virginia, but Kansas State definitely, they both need to win this game and probably more. I think that lends to the style of basketball that's a little bit more guarded on the possessions, a little more careful, slowing things down. Both coaches, veteran head coaches, I think are going to be preaching, don't dribble up and jack up a three with 25 seconds of shot clock type stuff, right? So I think that just gets us a little bit slower of a pace. I don't see any way this game gets up near the 140 mark, so like under in this one. Jake, you're basically picking the winner. Who wins and keeps their season alive in Kansas City tonight?
I'm leaning Kansas State. Makes me nervous. Like both these teams are very similar to each other. Very defense first, pressure defense, kind of attitude, and then even offensively, it's really a guard driven kind of thing. But I think Kansas State just has just enough more with Nigel Pack and a little bit more help on the inside than what West Virginia has. I can't say his name. People say it's like weird. Oboichkin or whatever for West Virginia is just not enough on the inside to really defend the rim and score enough. Taz Sherman and McNeil are incredible guards, but I think Kansas State's got the defense to really get up in them, make their life terrible, and they're going to be really dependent on that three ball. Don't think it works for them tonight. The West Virginia hasn't traveled well, like away from home. They've been a really good home team, and that makes sense with such a great home atmosphere, but they really haven't played well away from home, and I think that's going to come back to bite them, and I think Kansas State's going to win this game, but makes me nervous.
A lot of interesting things to think about with what sort of crowds will affect these games and the travel, right? It's not quite as simple as your normal home-road split. If you've seen the metrics, home court advantage was worth less this year in terms of points per game than any year before. And mostly we had fans back this year. And so, there's a lot of questions about that, right? What's making that, that change, what's driving that or whatever, but you still have some teams like you talked about with West Virginia where that hasn't been the case for them at all. It's just been kind of team by team base and location base. So it's kind of interesting to think through like what's going on with those. And then you add the conference tournament thing. That's another layer to think through and dive in. So just something to consider there. This tournament being played in Kansas City usually has in general, it's a lot of Kansas and a lot of Iowa State fans. It's not got a lot of Kansas State fans there usually because their team isn't as strong. This one, will a bunch of Kansas State fans show up and support their team tonight, just being a standalone game? It's hard to say. How will that actually have any effect? Who knows? It's a much closer to home game for Kansas State, which helps them out, as opposed to West Virginia, like you said, who's just been really bad traveling this year. And of course, there's the explanation for that travel, right? Getting in and out of Morgantown is not the easiest thing to do, just from a travel standpoint. So that also is potentially going to affect how you play when you have much longer trips. It helps them out when they play at home, but it hurts them on the road, right?
What, 3 time zones are switching almost?
Only 2 on this one, but it's just the fact, only crossing the one time zone here, but just the idea that they've got to take there's no airport in Morgantown, so a lot of times, how are they getting in? Are they driving to Pittsburgh or busing to Pittsburgh or whatever? It's just a lot more complicated to get in and out of Morgantown there. And the mountains obviously throw that off too. And that takes us to our Solo Jake segment. Another winner last night, 18-3-1 all time for this. My friend, you keep things rolling here. I'm going to give you a little bit of an afternoon delight segment here. 11 a.m. Central Time, Syracuse versus Florida State. A Syracuse team that might be one of the most volatile teams in the country, just based off of how they play, how they can get hot from three and get it rolling. And Syracuse is one of those teams that's not very good that I kind of think could beat anybody just because how hot they can get offensively, but also a team that I think can kind of lose to anybody as well, because when they are missing, they are absolutely brutal against the Florida State team that may be getting a little bit healthy here and has looked pretty good the last few times out. You're basically picking the winner here. Florida State is a 1.5-point favorite, but you're more or less picking who wins in this early ACC slot. Jake, who you got?
See, I'm going Florida State here. I think they are on a roll. They've won their last three, and that includes at Virginia and Notre Dame. Then the other one was NC State. That doesn't count. That's practice. But Syracuse is on the opposite end, right? They've lost 4 straight. Like Miami, North Carolina, Duke, and Notre Dame. Like those are the top 4 or 5 teams in the ACC. They've dropped them all. And they're so dependent on that 3 ball. And since Edwards has gone out, they don't rebound well. They don't really have an inside presence, which is a recipe for disaster with this Florida State team, who's long, athletic, and rebounds the ball extremely well. And they've got enough going right now since they're coming back healthy. They've got their better scorers back. They can shoot, but I think the pressure defense, they're going to be the way Hamilton runs his defense it's almost like hockey line changes, because they go out and they give you so much pressure, and just like he's like, give me a couple minutes and we'll get you out and get you back in when you're ready. But it's nuts how they play and he is one of the best coaches in the world. Like I'm thinking Jim Boeheim may have lost a little bit of the touch in his older age here, because he's like the 2-3 zone has been a little bit more solved, and he keeps like spreading it out to try to get pressure defense, and that's not going to work out well, especially when you don't have a great rim protector to float around in the middle. And this Florida State team is very good. Don't sleep on them. I think they'll get this one done, and I think they get it done in the 5 to 10 range. I just don't think the Boeheim brothers are going to be enough to shoot them out of this.
Yeah, and you mentioned that Miami-Syracuse game last weekend was just an insane collapse from Syracuse. And that's what I said. Like, most teams would do that, and you'd be, just shocked at how they collapsed at it. But with Syracuse, I'm like, anything's on the table with that team. I mean, they just are so volatile, and it makes it seem difficult to me that they're going to make a run in this tournament or the next one, just because of the fact that inconsistency is going to come back to bite them in the butt. It may be game 1, it may be game 4, but it's going to catch up to them.
I think they had a collapse against North Carolina too, and let that one get to overtime. They got beat by 10 or 11, and then this Florida State team, I'm not saying they're as good as Duke, but they're very similar makeup with like the big guys, how long they are athletically, and they can shoot a little bit of a jump shot. I forget the real skinny 7-foot guy's name that can hit threes. You sneak him into the middle and you play a 1-2 game like Duke did with Blanchero and Williams. It could get nasty.
All right. And that takes us to our overtime A plays. I've got 4 for you today, all of them underdogs. I'm going to start off in the afternoon. 2 p.m. Central, Stanford +4 against that Arizona State team. Jake, you mentioned them before. The model's 7-2 backing Arizona State. So I have liked backing Arizona State, but I think this number is just a bit of an overreaction. Neither team is very good. Arizona State does have the better defense, but Stanford has the better offense. I think there's value in 4 points because I just think anything can happen. Again, I do think Arizona State is probably more likely to win, but there's a lot of chances that they win by 1, 2, or 3, or even 4, and you get the push. I think there's just value there on Stanford. At 5:30 Central, I've got Rice +3 versus Charlotte. We had 2 A plays on Rice last week. Split those. I guess this is the rubber match here. Charlotte is maybe slightly better, but not 3 points better. And if it matters, the travel is easier on Rice as they go from Houston to Frisco, both inside the state of Texas. Another kind of who-the-heck-knows game. I think you're getting value. Anything can happen there. 6 p.m. Central, a not who-the-heck-knows game. I'm taking Binghamton +21 at Vermont, one of the few true home games we have today. Vermont will win easily. I think this is just too many points. Vermont has no incentive to play everyone the whole game. The first matchup these two teams played in Vermont, it got out of hand. The one at Binghamton was more respectful. I think they only lost by about 16. So they have the game plan. They just have to go out and not get embarrassed. Thankfully for us, they will be sad when they lose by 19, but we will not be sad about them losing by 19 because that's enough to get us to cover their 21, just too many. And the A-plus play of the day, 21-13-1. I'm going 8:30 Central, Southern Miss, plus 14.5 versus Florida Atlantic. Another game that Florida Atlantic should be able to win. But Florida Atlantic also not that good. Obviously, Southern Miss isn't. I am 10-7-1 in all plays involving Southern Miss, 12-5 in all plays involving Florida Atlantic, including 9-4 fading them. I just think this is too much respect on Florida Atlantic for a team that isn't good enough to be favored by 14.5 over very many teams in college basketball.
Yeah, I really like the Stanford play being +4. Seems about right with how hot and cold this Arizona State team can be, and then like you're right, Vermont. There's no reason right now to they're going to safely win this tournament. There's no reason to risk injury or whatever. So they'll probably get up by 20, 25 during the game, let off the gas, and like 19, 18, 16-point game, because it doesn't matter how much you win by right now, just as long as you win.
Exactly. And that takes us to our buzzer beaters. I've got two for you here. I've got the best B-side, Oregon, -9 versus Oregon State. Oregon State was picked dead last year in the preseason. We all know about that. But they went 10 – this is the narrative, but they did go 10-10 in conference last year. They weren't bad. They had hope. And so people talk about that amazing run Oregon State went on last year and, they were picked dead last, whatever. That was before the season started. They were picked dead last. But last year's Oregon State team was at least okay, went on that run. This year's team is awful. They have 3 wins altogether. They have 1 conference win. They haven't won in the year of our Lord 2022. Oregon knows they got to get going. I know that Oregon State would love to end Oregon season, but they're just severely outclassed. The best unit on the floor is Oregon's offense, and the worst unit on the floor is Oregon State's defense. That is a bad recipe there. And then I'm going to give you another afternoon game here for the Afternoon Delight segment. 1 p.m. Central, Portland State is a 4.5-point favorite against Idaho State. Portland State has the better offense. They have the better defense. They want to play fast, so it should help them get some separation there and not be a grinded-out game. I'm 7-4 backing Portland State and 7-4 fading Idaho State. So I think 4.5 is just not enough to beat Portland State. Is up 6 or 7 late. Maybe it gets out a little bit more than that because of late fouls.
Yeah, like that game time really surprises me. When's the last time you think these guys woke up to play a game like AAU tournament sometimes? Well,
and the Idaho game starts before that.
Yeah.
So the Idaho game's a 9:30 local start. I'm like you. It had to have been a high school tournament type thing. Yeah. Usually you're not playing at 9:30 in the morning. So that's even the second game. The first game's the worst.
That's nuts. And so my buzzer beaters, I like Fresno State. That should be no surprise, as much as I've faded San Jose State this year. They're 13.5. San Jose State's bad. They just want to go on spring break with everybody else. So Fresno State's going to do it. So, I really like Houston Baptist over Incarnate Word. Incarnate Word is really bad. Houston Baptist isn't great, but they're good enough to beat this Incarnate Word by 4. So I think that'll easily be done. And that's all I've got for today. Just remember some future bets out there like Florida State and St. John's out there could be really good payouts. Get them before they start. It could be a fun run to watch. Just something to cheer for.
Yeah, and you mentioned that the Houston Baptist game. I like the over on that one as well. Houston Baptist has been a solid over team. Something I'm really curious to watch, and we're going to have to make inferences really quick to see if we adjust, but the Southland Conference on the whole has been an over league. None of those teams play defense whatsoever, and the point totals have just been out of control. Models and books have a hard time catching up. I'm curious to see if that holds in the tournament, right? You have the neutral side effect, but a lot of these teams did play in this arena earlier in the season as a preseason little tournament thing or early season little tournament thing that they had done. So they're very familiar with that gem. And with these teams just not playing defense and just running and gunning, is that just going to continue? So I'll be really curious to watch these Southland games to see, do those totals stay crazy high, or do they actually kind of fall back to earth? for this one, I think that Houston Baptist, I just don't see any defense in that game there with Incarnate Word.
Yeah.
And that's all we've got for you today. Thanks for tuning in to another episode of Picks with the Professor. Reminder, check out that Google Sheet for picks on all of today's games not covered in this show. If you haven't done so yet, click that subscribe button. We'll get you a new episode every weekday and Saturday during the college basketball season, dropped right into your feed. We will see you tomorrow. Until then, remember, you can eat your betting money, but please don't bet your eating money.